Welcome back to City Skylines 2. We're back into Providence, growing our grid out a little more. I wanted to start off with something kind of chaotic. I wanted grids going several different directions, a lot of weird angled streets, a little bit of a hint of a desire to create something monumental and planned, mixed with a lot of randomness. Kind of maybe the story of a city where several different planners drew up different plans at different times, and it just sort of evolved into a bit of an ordered chaos as the old mixed with the new. Then as we come out here to the edges, we have these grids, which are going to be filled with some farmland initially. And my plan here had been to make the grids big enough that we can put one farm right in the middle of each block, and it'll fill the block up. And that's kind of also rooted in a sense of history, because if you think about how cities often developed in the past, you would have farm grids, especially in some parts of the United States, where parcels would be created and people would have their farming plots. Then as time went on, those farming plots would slowly get consumed by the expanding city and eventually divided up into smaller grids. But you'd have that sort of a patchwork of very square grids that once were farmland before the city expanded into them. So that's kind of the vibe we're going for here a little bit. So we'll allow this central part of town to exist. We'll build up more city around the railroad, because typically towns would be built up around a railroad. Quite often you would have kind of two downtowns, basically. You'd have the little kind of a town that would have been historically built up around the rail station, and then you would have the downtown area, which would have been the commercial hub, and those two would then be connected to each other, and eventually they would coalesce into a single town. So in this case, you could imagine that we would have a community built around the railroad depot, and then we'd have another community built along the river. And this freeway cutting through wouldn't have existed originally. It would be a more modern convention, one of those things that tends to kind of divide a community, because a freeway just would kind of run through town. Part of it would be farmland, but then probably some homes would be destroyed in the process as well. But the freeway is fine. It'll continue to be there. I do want to focus more on kind of just trying to make the city grow and fill in all of the empty spaces. Eventually we can start focusing on the more fine details, trying to make it look a little bit more, I guess, mature. But right now I just wanted to fill in some of these spaces with a lot of generic farming areas. Because I want the city to have a clear sense of boundary and definition. Real cities don't just like come to the edge and then fade into nothing. Like, they have farms and stuff around them, so we're going to just go ahead and keep on making farms. Today was a pretty good day in the content creation community for CS2. We have the Arc de Triomphe made its way into the workshop. We've got McDonald's and Whataburger and historic new city hall. A lot of new user-made assets are beginning to make their way into the workshop, and that's a pretty cool thing to see after a very long time of talking about one day maybe getting to see the asset ad editor released. Now finally it is, and we're starting to see custom content making its way into the game, so definitely pretty cool to get to see that moment, and makes me feel like potentially we are going to see kind of a renaissance for the game, if we're lucky. And I do intend to put the Arc de Triomphe into our city, because what city doesn't benefit from having an epic triumphal arch in it? Now, in the case of some of these grids, I think we're not gonna fill all of them up with farms. We're gonna do some subdivision of the grids to support more residential areas. Now, why is it that when I connected those alleyways, suddenly we lost our zoning here? Not super sure why. I guess that's the reason, because for some reason it decided that the zones should all face this other road and not the street they formerly were facing. This gives us a chance to kind of tell a story. Like, you can tell that used to be a farm field, and then as time passed, the city grew out and started to consume that grid, and then it became a neighborhood instead of a agricultural area. Watching a video just a little bit ago, said that supposedly all of the butter cookies that are sold these days around Christmas time may have been made in unsanitary conditions in India. So I think that it's one of those things that probably is not really based on any kind of truth. It's just something that has made its way around YouTube lately. But makes me kind of think I would like to go buy some butter cookies, because butter cookies are actually pretty good. They don't feel like they're extremely unhealthy for you. So there we have a extension of our waterfront street. Not super sure why my farm doesn't want to let me draw the boundaries I was trying to make. I guess maybe it's that power line. So what we can do is relocate our power line. Because we have our substation all the way over here in the middle of town. Now that our town has expanded, we can put it somewhere like maybe right there. Why does it say overlapping items? No, that's weird. Maybe because the power lines are still connected to it. Yeah, that's what it was. Right there we go. So you can place livestock farming anywhere. But all of the other types of agriculture have to have ground fertility. So Livestock farming it is. That kind of helps us to tell the story of our city kind of growing outward into a agricultural grid. As we need land, we'll reclaim some land from the farms. And the city around the edges that's not in the old town core will have more of a standardized grid that is based off of that standard farm grid dimension. So we're going to fill up the rest of these grids with a little bit more residential zoning. And maybe we'll expand across the railroad tracks as well. I think we need to build another hospital too, possibly. Seems like there's a lot of people who are perhaps injured over here. We have enough capacity, we just maybe don't have enough coverage in some parts of town. Maybe it's the traffic that's getting to us. Not super sure. But let's do let's build another medical center over here for this side of town. I don't know what we'll call it. Maybe I'm guessing we'll say that this side of town over here is the east side, because that feels like east to me. In reality, I don't know what direction it is necessarily. The game doesn't exactly define what's north. But anyways, there's one more hospital. Let's see how we're doing on education. Pretty dismal. We don't have enough of any kind of education, so let's look into building a high school. French high school, I kind of like that. We're kind of trying to be a little bit inspired by something in the neighborhood of a French sort of a design style for this city. So I think we can do the French high school. I don't know where I want to put it though. I mean, I could put it up there in this empty space because we haven't developed there yet. No. What if we just put it like way up there? Probably not, because it really ought to be kind of in the main part of town. So we'll put it there. I can see that being a decent place for it. Now we have enough high school capacity. We do need another elementary school, though. That works. I think if we build a bridge, an overpass over the freeway here, maybe that'll help with some traffic issues. And since we have our bus depot there, it could be useful for public transportation vehicles to be able to easily access the depot. I haven't really settled for sure on exactly where this fictional city is supposed to be set, but I'm thinking we're gonna just go ahead and say it's Louisiana, because I keep on thinking about New Orleans, and that's kind of the vibe I wanted to go with. But it's not New Orleans, so Like what other city is kind of in the south at the mouth of a river feeding into the ocean? So noise pollution issues, so we'll zone commercial over this area because looks like if we have residential areas there, it's going to be too noisy. We still have more demand for low density residential zones, so keep building those out. I don't really like the way these blocks look at all. Like they just look pretty drab and uninspired. So I think we're going to want to probably build... I'm kind of thinking that this area here with these little dinky houses that just don't really fit the area very well. I think that's going to be a big part of our downtown area eventually. And probably this will be part of our downtown as well. Like, I like the way these blocks look, give or take. Like, you know, they're not perfect, but I kind of like them. It looks kind of cool. But there's definitely a lot of areas of development here where I look at it and I'm like, doesn't really do anything for me. We need some real substantial development that is thoughtful and mindful to turn this area into something that feels like a really distinctive and interesting downtown area. These buildings with the grass on the roofs look pretty cool. To be fair, a lot of cities start off pretty random in the way they're built. Like, it's not like there's a solid plan to say, okay, here's what our city is going to look like. Like, it's just, it doesn't work like that. It's this random, haphazard kind of a concept of a plan, I guess. All right, we have another milestone. The Sunshine Hotel. Well, that's pretty cool. We have our supermarket has been unlocked. Northeastern Inn, Grand Dynasty Hotel. A lot of really cool buildings unlocked at milestone number 9. We have an old castle ruin there. It's kind of cool. I think we're gonna make a point to kind of preserve these ruins because, you know, it'd stand a reason we would want to probably not tear down old castle ruins. So we'll go ahead and leave those there. Now maybe what we'll do here is we'll use this street to extend a frontage road along the freeway. That works out pretty well. We're kind of staying true to the grid while being a little bit flexible. And that's super awkward, the way that street just cuts through like that. But there are intersections like that in real life where you have just weird streets that just kind of defy reason. Especially in old parts of town. I'm not sure if I like that. It looks pretty ridiculous. So I might remove some of those streets just because, like, those awkward little intersections, they don't really make sense. And in real life, they would cause problems. So I think probably in the case of that, we'll delete those. We'll delete that. Something a little more like that. There we go. That's a really odd shaped intersection, but you know what? We could probably get away with it because it's an old part of town. We can have some janky intersections because you know, it's gonna have some character, some charm. So this should be our grain farming area. So we'll build our farms out first. Looks like we have a tornado somewhere. Yeah, there's a tornado. Oh well. It's not here, so I guess the shadow of the tornado is a lot worse than the tornado itself. I kind of want the farms to feel like a little bit of a patchwork, you know, not like it's a solid, unbroken farming community that has nothing else going on. I want this to be like a little town, but with farm fields in the middle of it. That way it'll feel like it's kind of quaint, you know? That might do the trick. Looks kind of nice. Could probably put one more farm right there. Or I could just do standard industry. I guess I should probably do another farm here because that is a fertile area and I want to take advantage of it. I suppose we can put more industrial zoning over here because, you know, it's right by the main freeway exit and I don't know what else you'd really expect next to the garbage dump. I think it's a pretty haphazard grid. It's a pretty kind of chaotic layout, but I think we can have some fun with it. We can do some interesting things as the build progresses. We have a shortage of vehicles. Apparently. Still don't have enough trains. Like, isn't that kind of crazy? This German medium density housing looks really nice. Like, note to self. Got to use more of that for that sort of an old town kind of feel. I think we're going to probably have to focus on traffic and like bus routes and stuff like that in the next episode, because as it stands, it seems like we're starting to get pretty congested. We've got the foundations, though, for what can become a more dense urban core eventually. We want to have the edges of the city need to be more sparsely populated. We need those farm fields and open spaces. Then that gradually goes into more density as we get to the middle of the heart of the city. It just doesn't really work if you start right off with like skyscrapers and super tall buildings. You have to have that low density that will feed into the higher levels of density as you get to the core of the city. And that's kind of what we've been trying to do by focusing on building out the farm fields and things like that around the edges to create a little bit of a sense that the city is not just jumping out of nowhere. Like, it started off as a farming community and kind of grew up from there. Anyways, that will probably do it for today's episode of City Skylines 2 gameplay. A great day to be back in the game after all of those updates. So hopefully we can make the most of them in this build and turn Providence into a city that is worthy of pride. Till next time, thanks so much for watching.